Hello, my name is Brianna Solis, and today I am going to be discussing the article Professionals' Attitudes on Partnering with Families of Children and Youth with Disabilities. So this article goes into talking about building partnerships with the families that you work with and kind of the barriers or perceptions or misconceptions on building those partnerships and the attitudes that professionals have about it. So, although this article is related more specifically to working with families of children who have disabilities, this is a good article in general about partnerships with families. There's a lot of different professions that you have to build partnerships with families. So this kind of gives a good view of maybe some barriers to other partnerships, not only in the educational profession. So the problem, as I kind of stated, is that there are various barriers related to the implementation of partnerships. So as I get to the results of this study, I will share those barriers that this article found. But the goal of this article is kind of to explain professionals' perceptions of parent-professional partnerships. So what are their thoughts about those and how do they feel? So the research question for this article was, what are professionals' perceptions about characteristics of effective partnerships with parents? And this article, the research method and design, they did a qualitative study and they used a constructivist approach to the grounded theory development. And for their sampling, they used the purposive sampling approach, and they created a sampling grid to recruit respondents with diverse characteristics. So it represented different viewpoints about family professional relationships, and the people in their study came from different disciplines. So some were maybe therapists, some psychologists, some speech language pathologists, special education teachers, working with different ages of students. So either early intervention or elementary or middle school. So there was a broad range of both disciplines in the field of education and the ages of the people that worked with. So for the data collection, they used a pilot partnership scale and then also an open-ended interview. And then to analyze that data, they used the constant comparison method. So the data was compared from one transcript to another, and categories or themes emerged from this study. And then after those were formed, using coding, they had two investigators compare each other's findings so that they were able to do a credibility check to make sure that everything that they found aligned and made sense and there were no discrepancies in that. So for the results of this, 3 themes emerged. The first one was that there's a gap between family-centered language and actions, what that means is that families are using family-centered language and saying a lot of family-centered things, but professionals felt like their actions don't really show that they are doing that. So they say something and then either they don't do it or they say something and then what they do contradicts what they said. The next theme that emerged is the Goldilocks perception, and that is that professionals have a very specific idea of just the right amount that parents should be involved or what is appropriate. So they think that parents are either involved too much, too little, or just the right amount. And the area, the threshold from which is just the right amount is very, very small and limited. And then the last theme that emerged is parental blame, and this is professionals blaming parents, basically blaming parents for all the problems they have in carrying out partnerships. So those were the three themes that emerged from the study. And as far as limitations for this study, the sample that they recruited was somewhat unbalanced. There was more representation of professionals from educational settings rather than other settings. The health setting that they accessed participants from was a teaching university hospital, so that may have been different compared to people who were in a typical health setting. Interviews also followed the scale about family professional relationships, so their interview responses may have been influenced by the scale's content. So they may have heard something in the scale or talked about something in the scale, and then it impacted their interview responses. And then ideally, you would want to include a more extensive interview process and use much more data sources than what was used in this research problem or research. And then for future research, it's really important that we look at the reason for these perceptions. Why are professionals feeling this way? Why do they have such a narrow view of what is appropriate as far as a partnership or the parents' participation? So what is influencing how they're feeling? Why are they feeling this way? Also, their attitudes towards it. This goes a little bit into their attitude towards it, but again, more about why they're feeling that way. And then also, there's just, this article states that there's just so much more miles to go to implement effective family professional partnerships. So doing more research on this and how we can have more effective partnership strategies towards more effective partnerships would really help. But I just want to end with the definition of a partnership, which this article shares twice, and it's that it's a mutually supportive interaction between families and professionals focused on meeting the needs of children and families and characterized by a sense of competence, commitment, equality, positive communication, respect, and trust. So to have a effective partnership, there are a lot of different pieces to it, and also it takes both the family being willing and involved as well as the professional. So what can we do to make those partnerships more effective and create those relationships which at the end of the day help the student grow and learn and be in the best possible situation that they can be. Thank you for listening. Bye.